Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Angela. I am thrilled to have with me today Christian De La Huerta. He is a
Yeah.
transformation coach, award-winning author, and a TEDx speaker with 30 years of experience guiding individuals and couples towards fulfilling relationships. He helps clients break free from internal barriers to love, fostering authentic connections through his unique approach that transcends conventional therapy. His latest book, Conscious Love, builds on this work, providing practical tools for deeper intimacy. Awakening the Soul of Power, praised by Gloria Esteban, garnered multiple prestigious awards, and Christian empowers individuals to unlock their potential, creating lasting positive change in their lives and communities. It is such a thrill to have you here. I'm anxious to dive into this topic, partly because I've just been through this huge grief journey, and I know how important relationships are through that because everything changes, right? And then I also have a support group with a lot of women who are now way through their grief journey or starting to think about maybe having a relationship and they don't want to be alone. I'm stepping into a new relationship. And so I find this topic really fascinating and really relevant to me right now. So thank you for taking the time today.
I love it, Angela. Thank you for having me. And I love the subject myself. I've been doing coaching and retreats for probably 35 years or close to that now. And by far, I think that area of intimate romantic relationships is where most of us struggle and is probably the biggest cause of grief, as well as the best moments of ecstasy and happiness and fulfillment and grief and heartbreak and all of it. So it is a very complicated part of the human experience.
Yeah, for sure. And, coming off, a 35-year relationship with my husband and then losing him and then stepping into a new one, it's almost, it's thrilling, it's exciting, it's wonderful, and just a little bit scary because there's always that chance that you may lose another. And so there's that little bit of fear that's always kind of riding in the background all the time. So I'm
Yeah.
anxious to dive into this more.
Yeah, and I've heard that a lot too. People, who have lost a partner either from the cycle of life or separation. Um, there's always that choice. Right? There's that ambivalence. Yeah, part of us longs to be in another relationship, which because it is so ecstatic and so fulfilling. And then there's that other part of us that it's like, I don't know if I want to do that again. I don't know. I don't know if I want to risk another loss, another separation, another breakup. And so what happens is we end up doing this with one hand, come here with the other one. Whoa, 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 slow down, not too fast. So the ambivalence is completely understandable.
Yeah. So I just want to dive into your retreats just a little bit so I don't forget before the this is kind of a backwards way to go at it. But I went to your website and it said when the going gets tough, the tough go within. And I love that because that's really what I learned through my journey is all the answers are there. We're always looking outside.
Yes.
Talk more about that.
Well, I think you said it beautifully. It's like we are so conditioned to look for meaning, for validation, for answers outside of ourselves. Um, and it's all within. Like everything we need to know, the healing, the possibility, it's all inside of us. And to me, there's no way around it. I'm not very dogmatic. I think I'm dogmatic about two or three things, and one of them is going within. And maybe I'm not dogmatic because if you show me a different way, I'm open to looking at it differently. But if you wanna be free, if we wanna have a sense of meaning and purpose, if we wanna know who we are, there's no way around it. It all begins by going within and figuring out who we are, why we do the things we do, why we get caught in some kind of patterns, relationships that sometimes feels like relational deja vu. Like, the same kind of arguments over and over again, the same kind of relational patterns, only sometimes with a different actor, a different co-lead, but the same boring movie. Um, and so really behooves us to go within and ask the hard questions, to face ourselves. It's not easy, but it is so infinitely rewarding. It is a necessity as far as I'm concerned. We've got to do it at some point. And yet, most of us are conditioned to run away from all that stuff and to medicate ourselves, in all the creative ways that we do in order to avoid looking at ourselves or feeling. And I know that you know that from the work that you do with grief. It's like how many of us try to jump over that and not feel those emotions, but jumping over it doesn't work, and sweeping it under the rug doesn't work either. Like it only festers and gets worse under the surface. So, yeah, I don't see any way around going within.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about the other day, still, even though I know the importance of that, my human nature is still, our anniversary was the day before yesterday. So it would have been 39 years.
Mm,
And so I get up in the morning and I have that little inkling, like, heart's a little tender, but I'll be okay, right? Like that's kind of how it went. And I was going about my day. I was making to my seasonal spot in the Cypress Hills to be in the trees. I had all the right ideas. But I wasn't leaning into it. I was just going, I'll be okay.
yeah.
And then I had a phone call that triggered me
Mm,
and sent me into that space, which I think the universe just sends. I think it just sends it because that seems to be always the way that it happens. And then I had to lean in. And it was wonderful to lean in. At first you're doing that, oh, I don't know if I want to go down this road, theory, and this is not fun, but I know for a fact that every time I do that, there's a release and it feels great afterwards if I can lean into it. A human nature is to,
it is. That is human nature. We don't want to feel those pesky emotions. And I don't know if it's ultimately human nature, but it's definitely conditioned. Like we've been taught to be afraid of our emotions. And we've labeled the emotion with weakness. Right. And what's up with that? Like especially with men and little boys don't cry. And what is up with that? Like only little girls cry? And so we've turned them into weakness. And there's so many flaws with that thinking, that emotions are weakness, period. They're not weakness, they're not strength, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just energies that are coursing through our body. And the same thing with the feminine, right? Like really? Do you think we're gonna label the feminine weakness? Come on, give me a break. If you want to talk courage, resilience, strength, let's talk about the power of creation that resides in a female body. Um, but going back to the emotions, those energies, like think about a kid, having a total emotional tantrum, a meltdown. A minute later, they're playing like if nothing happened, right? They have their emotions fully, and then they can move on to the next emotion. We get into trouble with them because we suppress them. And we know from physics now what used to be spiritual teaching that everything is energy. And we know from physics energy cannot be destroyed. So that includes the emotions. We can try to suppress them, but it doesn't work. They don't go away. And what happens when we keep suppressing those emotions, we keep stuffing our anger and it turns into rage. We keep stuffing our sadness and it turns into depression. It congeals into depression. So, not a good strategy. So, I really value the work that you do in helping us get in touch with our emotions and, in particularly, grief and sadness.
so. Tell me a little bit more about the work you do, how you help people with relationships.
Yeah, I do that in a variety of ways. Like I have private clients that I do coaching with. I do the retreats that you were referencing. Um, I love in particular the retreats because you'll have a group of people, and they usually tend to be about 15 to 20. So to maintain the intimacy and the ability to go deep in a short period of time. So probably 3 days, usually meet Thursday night through Sunday afternoon. It's a combination of cognitive teachings and creating a set of experiences which allow us to open up and to feel safe and to let go of all the stuff that's been suppressed that we need to clear. And so part of it is that cognitive understanding. I teach about the ego mind, do a lot of different retreats on different themes, on conscious relationships, personal empowerment. I work specifically with women around women's empowerment, life purpose, different themes, but two constants always. One is teaching the ego mind. And big conversation, um, so much confusion or around what that is, what that part of us is, but really important to really understand it. And then always bring about breath work, because in over almost 35 years of doing this kind of work, I have yet to come across anything that heals as quickly as it does, that helps us clear those repressed emotions, that helps us come to a place of internal peace as quickly as it does.
And I've had experience with breath work. And the first time, the first time I experienced it, I was down in Sedona, and it was a 90-minute session. It was one-on-one with it. And when I got done, I drove back to my motel, but honestly, I don't think I should have been.
Yeah, yeah.
It was so profound. And there was a lot of emotion that came up through. I ended up processing it the next day, thankfully, with someone who helped me with it. But it really made me think, this is a powerful tool. Now I've interviewed a lot of people who either are facilitating breath work or they've had experience with breath work. And it seems like, a lot of people have had similar views, though it brings up that stuff that we've suppressed, would you say?
Oh my God, yes. And I come out of the psychotherapy tradition. My dad was a psychiatrist. My degrees in psychology, I was on track to get a PhD in clinical psych. And when I discovered breath work, with all due respect to the psychotherapy tradition, in the right hands with clear goals, it can be really supportive and life-changing. And we all know that you can sit on somebody's couch rehashing the same old crap for decades, years, or decades at a time, and nothing happens. The reason for that is that the trauma no longer lives in the mind. So we can talk at it as much as we want. It's not going to get to it. And certainly understanding the dynamics behind what we do, it's better than not knowing at all. But the beauty of breathwork is that it bypasses the mind and it goes to the source of that trauma, which now lives in the body, and it clears it. And it's like one session, as you know, can change your life. My first session changed my life. I jumped track, never went for the PhD after that. And I've offered breath work, for now 30 something years all over the world. And it is, and the beautiful part of it is that not only does it heal so quickly and so profoundly and on so many levels, but it also takes us to these really ecstatic experiences of inner peace, of sense of oneness, sense of connection with it all. I can't tell you how often I've had people tell me I got to the same place that I did on a sacred plant medicine journey. Whether it's mushrooms or ayahuasca or whatever it is that's available for people to do. It kind of pops us out of that. Um, and here, to connect it to what we were talking about earlier with the ego, here's a simple image that helps us get what the ego is. If you put a baseball in the center of a stadium, that's what the ego is. And the word ego means I, as you know, so it's that sense of self. It's that sense of separate personality. This is Christian. That's Angela. Both illusion and a helpful illusion, and also the source of all our suffering. Um, who we are is actually the stadium. And we've allowed this tiny, tiny, tiny part of who we are to think that it is all who we are and to make really important choices about our lives, about our relationships, about what we do, and or not do from its very small, limited, and always fear-based perspective. So that's why it's really important to understand what the ego is.
And I like the way that you describe it. Is, you know, I I have that same kind of vision, but not as a baseball field. But I'm always recognizing there's this human aspect of me, and then there's the spiritual aspect of me that's much bigger,
Yes.
wiser, and and the two have to be acknowledged. And sometimes when we get into the spiritual world, and that's what I found is that we get so that we're like, okay, I'm spiritual now. It's so, this stuff that's coming out.
Yeah.
And I had to realize that that human aspect has to be addressed as well.
Yeah. I love
And
that. Love that you
yeah,
teach that and practice that. Because I see that too a lot, right? There's spiritual bypassing,
mm,
right? Where, oh no, I'm gonna jump over those pesky emotions because now I'm like all love and light.
yes,
But I beg to differ. Yes, ultimately we all are that, but there's also that very real part of us being human that has experienced emotional and psychological pain and wounds and trauma. And it's all healable. It's all very doable because I've seen and worked with and helped people support people through like healing the really profound trauma. Um, so it all works, but we can't jump over it. And so that to me, that's what breathwork does. It pops us out of that little baseball and gives us a glimpse of our stadium nature.
yeah. And looking down on that field, you
Hmm.
could see yourself and how, you've made your whole world when your world is so much bigger.
Yes.
It's once you get that concept, it really changes everything.
It is everything. Everything. And it also the other thing that it does, that it understanding what the ego does and that shenanigans, it pops us out of victim mode. Right? Because that's what that part of us that feels for me, woe is me. It's the ego. Um, and the thing about that is, and not to minimize or deny anybody's pain or their past or their wounds, none of that. It's like I'm sorry about the stuff that happens and the tragic things that human beings do to one another, and just the difficult parts of being human, like you losing your husband, right? That's just part of what's woven into life. So I'm not minimizing any of that pain, but we need to feel it and not try to sweep it away or jump over it. Otherwise, it just festers and gets worse, as we've been saying.
Yeah, they find that, now looking at grief and looking at the past, somebody described it, I think it was a previous interview, someone had described it as jewels that you take from, it's just, some people say it's gifts that you take, but you're looking at it with a totally different perspective. It's not looking at it with sadness or regret anymore. It's more like this beautiful life that I lived with my husband and the things that I gleaned and learned from being with him I still take with me. And I think that's what she was talking about, like these jewels that you take with you on your path going forward.
Hmm.
So to get to that space, you got to get by, all of that. You have to get by that victim mentality that somebody did this to me, and it's hard to let some of that go.
It's the hardest thing. Like that's what I noticed. The hardest thing that we struggle with is letting go of that. And so here's a way to hold it that allows us to do that. Like no matter what happened in the past, and all of us have gone through pain and suffering, and without denying any of that. So no matter what happened, and no matter what happens going forward, one thing we can count on is that life is going to throw us curveballs. It's going to happen, and we're going to lose loved ones. And tragic stuff is we're going to witness tragedies happening in the world, so that we can count on that. But no matter what happened and no matter what happens, we can always choose how we show up in response to that. And that alone, that shift in thinking alone, helps us out of that poor me, victimized, whether it's by our parents or victimized by life. It pops out of that because when we keep ourselves in that victim mindset, we're giving our power away. Right? If we're holding, or somebody over the fire for what they did or failed to do, whether it's an ex or mom or dad or whomever, teacher, the minister, whatever, if we're holding them over the fire for what they did or didn't do, our hands also getting burnt. So this letting go and this forgiveness work, um, it's not easy. It's nothing less than heroic, and it is infinitely rewarding because the reward for it is freedom. We're not stuck in our pasts anymore. And again, not denying our pasts, but not getting stuck in it.
Yeah, and just I guess I lost my frame of thought. But yeah, it feels to me like you need a lot of courage. You need to be very brave to step
Yeah.
into that space and hang on to some of that stuff because it is, I think, our human nature to want to blame, shame, or do any of that kind of thing. So yeah, letting go. So the breath work that you do will help
Mhm.
people with this. Have you how have you experienced that? Tell me some stories about people.
Oh my God.
who-
Well, here's one that's kind of dramatic. It's a woman, probably in her 50s when she came to me, incredibly successful in professionally. Like she was a vice president of a multinational company, like, and a real vice president, not like a bank vice president that they have one at every branch. So she was very successful, but in her personal life, had never really had a relationship that worked. And so there's a quote from the Course in Miracles that says that it's not our job to look for love, but to look within ourselves for the obstacles to love, right? So going back to that need for going within, because there was no rational reason why this woman shouldn't be in a relationship. She was smart and elegant and accomplished and successful, a beautiful woman, um, and so we knew that it was something in her that was keeping it away. So she came to several retreats. It took her a bit because she had it so suppressed. And in the last retreat that she remembered, and it was like a real dramatic thing. Her body was like almost fighting me. Um, and I knew it wasn't about me. It was just her body fighting a memory of sexual abuse when she was a kid. And but here's the interesting part. So we went through several of those, right? And we started to see her behavior changing. She was having more inner peace, but still, it wasn't until the last retreat, the very last session, where in a breathwork session, she saw herself inside of a room. And it was a room where the sexual abuse had happened. And she realized that it was up to her to open the door. And that there was a part of her that hadn't wanted to open that door because her father had been ill throughout her entire childhood, so she was missing that paternal figure, and this abuser guy in some twisted way was giving her that. Twisted but understandable, completely understandable. So there was that ambivalence about letting it go. And so then that last retreat, I never forget, she finally let it go, opened the door, let herself out of that room. Tuesday, she was having lunch with a friend, and who's all of a sudden stops on her tracks, and she goes, "Oh, I don't know why I hadn't thought of this before, but you need to meet so and so." Long story short, I married them. a couple of years later, and they're still together. Yeah. So she removed the internal blocks that were keeping love away.
Yeah, and
Amazing. You
I
know that
truly
happened.
believe that. Yeah, there is that inside of us. And yeah, it can be very suppressed. So yeah, I love the idea of breath work because, with ayahuasca and those kinds of things, there's always that, you're putting that into your body. To me, it's a bit of, with breath work, you have control of how much you breathe and what you do. You're still in control.
Yeah, and there are a lot of unknowns with the sacred plant medicine. And I use the word sacred intentionally. I think it is sacred work, but it's not for everybody. Most of us are probably not going to try that. Breath work is so accessible. It's just breathing, just between us and our breath. And I know that's for somebody who may not have tried it or researched it. I know that sounds too good to be true, that all that can happen just from breathing. And they haven't studied, so there isn't the scientific evidence as to why it works. They're starting to read a lot of research on meditation. They're just now starting to do some serious intentional research on breathwork specifically. But here's how I understand it. It's really interesting that if we look at almost all spiritual traditions and all religions and even some secular languages in the world, the same word, one word, can mean breath or spirit. So there's something to that.
For sure. And I know I interviewed a fellow who very much into the breath work, and he referenced a lot of places in the Bible where they talk about it.
Mm.
So something new, but definitely something we've started to embrace as a tool.
Yeah. And it's also a big umbrella term. Like there's a lot of breathing techniques, breathing practices that have different purposes, some that are more better for relaxation, for stress reduction, others are better for like energizing us, like right before an important meeting to bring a heightened sense of focus and attention. And those are all great. The breath work that you and I are talking about is more intense, and it's a longer duration. You breathe for about an hour and a half, and just amazing stuff happens. Amazing stuff happens.
Yeah, and the feeling that you get when you're done, oh, so worth it right there.
And that's what to me is the glimpse of the stadium nature, right? We have that. Sometimes it's really visual, and people see themselves and feel themselves as part of the cosmos. They see themselves floating out in the cosmos and feeling that we are that sense of unitary consciousness. And sometimes it's just such a profound sense of peace that the body is so relaxed. There is no thoughts there are no thoughts going through our mind. Um, and I remember one time just thinking, oh my God, it's like I haven't taken a breath in so long. There's no need to think. There's no need to even breathe. Just need to be. That's all I got to do is just be. And those are profound experiences too.
I have a question about, so if let's say that a person wants to work with you and do breath work, have lung issues.
I've never had anybody who wasn't able to breathe in some way, right? So yeah, I've even had people with one lung that we just take it more slowly. We don't do as intense a powerful breath as I might do with somebody else. But yeah, there may be somebody who out there that I don't know about, but I haven't come across in 33, 34 years. I haven't come across anybody who couldn't do the breathing part of it.
There's
Yeah.
somebody else asking that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would recommend the first few times, 5 times, maybe 10, ideally, with a trained professionally. Like the technical part of it is real simple. Just a connected breathing, a circular breathing with your inhale stronger than your exhale. Very easy to do. We can explain it in 30 seconds how to do it. But the reason that I highly recommend doing it in the presence of a trained professional is that for that ego mind that we were talking about, it's really good for it to feel safe, to feel held, to feel taken care of so that it can let go of the stuff that it's been spending years and maybe a lifetime suppressing,
Right.
keeping under the surface. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just brought up a real good point about feeling safe, whoever you're working with. Always said to people, even with grief coaches, to make sure that you resonate with that person and not to just stick with them because somebody else said they were good or they should be. They have these qualifications, but if they don't resonate with you and you don't feel safe with them and you aren't getting connection, then yeah, there's lots of people.
Agreed. Agreed.
So tell people, how can they get a hold of work?
Probably the best way to reach me is my website, soulfulpower.com, SOULFULPOWER.com. And there they can email me, they can access my social media, they can access links to the book, which both books, Awakening the Soul of Power and Conscious Love, Transforming Our Relationship to Relationships, are both available on Amazon, or they can just order them at their local bookstore.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about each of those so people know what they might be ordering.
Yeah, thank you. Awakening the Soul of Power talks about how addresses this ambivalence we have about power, right? Part of us wants it, part of us is afraid of it. And no wonder, how many abuses of power have each of us witnessed, right? On any given day, all we got to do is turn on the news and witness at least one abuse of power. And that's in the macro sense. In our personal lives, countless times we have been part of that. And we've also been conditioned to think that power is a bad thing, with quotes like power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. And what good person wants to be corrupted? But what they didn't tell us about that quote is that Lord Acton was speaking specifically about political power, not the personal power that you and I are talking about. And so what happens when you put all that together and add to the mix what we were talking about earlier, the conditioning about being afraid of the emotions and thinking turning the emotions into weakness, you put all that together, what happens is that we end up giving our power away, our innate, inherent power that nobody can give to us. Nobody can take away. We are the only ones who give it away. And to me, the saddest part is the reasons for which we give it away. How many times have we said yes when inside it was a no? Inside it really was not okay with us. But in order to maintain the peace, or for that illusion of acceptance or pseudo love of a relationship, or because somewhere in there we were afraid of being alone, we override our true feelings, our preferences, our desires, our dreams, and we end up settling for crumbs. And so I don't recommend that strategy. It's not a good strategy because all that stuff that we're repressing doesn't go away. It turns into resentment inside of us. And then that shows up either as overreacting to emotional situations, or it has to come out as illness, right? Those energies have to come out one way or another, and it turns into disease. So the way around this conflict around power is that there is a way to step into power that is not about hierarchy, control, fear, domination, that doesn't require that we push anybody down or step on them in order to feel power. So that's what that book is about. How do we do that? And then the other one is Conscious Love, the one that just came out, transforming our relationship to relationships. So we start talking about healthy ways to approach relationships, right? So to me, when we approach relationships unconsciously, that means that we approach it with the hope, with the dream that relationship, that person's going to complete us, is going to make us happy. Forget it. hang it up. There isn't anybody out there who's going to make us happy. And it's not their job to. Like, that's an unfair responsibility to drop on somebody else. You are going to make me happy. That's a great, heavy responsibility to put on a relationship. So forget those are not going to work. So what does it mean to approach a relationship consciously from the point of view, from the knowing that only we are going to make ourselves happy? What is the purpose of that relationship then? And that's what I get into the book. And I also get into what are the relationship challenges? How do we get stuck in relationships and way through those?
Yeah. So those sound like two very powerful books. Probably should get and read. Do you have them on Audible as well, or just
Haven't done that yet. I get
okay?
that. I get that about once a week. I have to, because I don't want to just have an automated voice recorded. Like I want to do it in my own voice. And I just haven't taken the time to do that. But I will. I don't know when. I'm not going to commit to when, but I will soon.
Okay. And is there anything else you'd like to share? Maybe something we didn't talk about that you to get across?
Well, I think just to close, go full circle and say that say it again, that everything is within, including all the tools that we need and the skills that we need to be happy, to be fulfilled, to have lives that are filled with meaning and purpose, to have a sense of personal empowerment, to have relationships that actually have a chance of working. It's all within us. And yeah, again, it's like I know it takes courage to go inside and to face ourselves. But the thing about the fear that keeps us from doing that is that it's really been overly magnified, right? And that we're running away from stuff that happened a long time ago. And when we were a different person, when we were kids that didn't have any understanding, didn't have a sense of self that we have now. So I think once we're willing to do that and to look inside, we'll discover that what we were afraid of really wasn't such a big deal, wasn't as bad as we thought. So it is well worth the journey.
For sure. Yeah, and I encourage people to go check out your website, check out your books, see when the retreats are. Maybe some work for you, work one on one. It would be, sounds like it would be a very profound awakening, transformation, whatever you want to call it, for someone who's
Yes.
going through it.
Yes, thank you. It is life-changing work. And I say that in total humility, but I know it is. I would be lying if I said it wasn't. And I've just witnessed, right? I've seen too much transformation happen. Been privileged to have been a witness to that. So I don't take credit for the healing. I give that to the breath. What I do take credit for is creating the environment, the experiences in which that ego mind can let go and allow the healing to happen, to let go of the stuff that's been in the way and allow the breath to come in there and do the real miraculous healing, because there's no other word for it.
Beautiful. Love it. Well, thank you again for taking time today. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for listening.